Hello, good evening. This is the Benson Media, and today is a Friday. We are blessed to have this time to just look at what happened in the debate which just concluded. And we had three candidates. One of them was Raila Odinga from Kenya, a candidate from Kenya. We also had a candidate from Djibouti and also a candidate from Madagascar. They had the floor and they had to give their opinion and to also, tell the people of Africa what they are going to do for the people of Africa. So it was a nice debate, and I hope everyone who is really interested in getting to understand what is happening in Africa maybe found time to have a look at it. Yeah, before we start, this is Brother Benson Media, and here we say that your opinion counts. If you're new here, we are kindly requesting you to like and subscribe to the channel, and feel welcomed as you'll be watching what we would have discussed. Mr. Barak, allow me to take this opportunity to give you a chance to say hi to our viewers.
Greetings to all our viewers. Welcome to Brother Benson Media, where your opinion counts. It's such a privilege and honor again to be with you during this session. And feel free to engage us through the comment section. Your comments are highly appreciated. Ask any question that you want us to attend to, and we'll respond to it. In the meantime, we're looking forward to having a very interactive session tonight. Thank you so much. Mark.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barak. Could you kindly confirm to us that maybe you watched what was happening, and maybe what is your take if you watched the debate?
Yes, I did. I followed what was going on at Addis Ababa and how the discussion went on. I believe that if you looked at the debate, you'll agree with me that the three candidates stood out very firmly, and they really tried their best. They tried fairly well. They were really objective in their discussion. And if you listen very well, you'll realize that the Djibouti candidate, he really spoke like a diplomat who understands the issues of diplomacy and how international relations work. And if you listen to our candidate Raila Odinga, you'll realize that he's so passionate about Pan-Africanism and Afro-optimism, and his his optimism in terms of the African integration and African unity, and even so many things. You find that he was so passionate about the success of Africa. And if you listen to the guy from Madagascar, he's a bureaucrat, and he spoke like a bureaucrat who really understands bureaucratic principles and bureaucratic management and so on and so forth. So basically, it was a nice debate with every candidate having a unique background and bringing all these backgrounds together to address the issues that are affecting Africa. And as far as the Agenda 2063 is concerned. So it was a very nice debate, and we wish them all the best as they continue to seek for votes. And even as we wish them all the best, we want our candidate to win, because we want our candidate to win in a fair contest, because every candidate has been given a fair chance to appeal to the electorates, who are the heads of states and governments from all the 54 states of Africa. So when these heads of state will converge in Addis Ababa next year in February, we hope that by that time they will have made up their mind to give the Honorable Raila Odinga a chance to lead this continent as by occupying the position of the African Union Commission chairperson. So that's my comment, Bwana Mark.
Hello, Mr. Barak. Maybe something else that you can give your opinion on is the issue of infrastructure. They were asked something about infrastructure and they had to give their opinion on that. What is your take on how they tackled that, starting with Raila?
You know, in terms of infrastructure, Raila Odinga had an advantage over the two because he was once a high representative for infrastructure, African Union high representative for infrastructure in Africa since I think 2019 or up to when Ruto became the president. So it was 5 years, and so he has really traveled this continent, and he by the virtue of occupying that position, he understood the challenges that Africa is facing as far as infrastructure development is concerned. And you know, that is the main challenge that we have in Africa: poor infrastructure. That is even hindering uh, movement, free movement, or ease movement of goods and services within Africa. Remember, when you talk about infrastructure, we mean rail infrastructure, roads infrastructure, air infrastructure, and even sea routes. Because you can imagine that if you're coming from Nairobi and maybe you want to visit a country like Mauritania, do you know that you cannot just travel from Nairobi to Mauritania? You have to get out of the Africa and go to Dubai, and maybe from Dubai that then you connect to Mauritania, or you can even find that you can even go from Nairobi to Addis Ababa, from Addis Ababa to Dubai, then from Dubai then you connect to to Rabat in Morocco, then from Morocco then you connect. So you find that all this lack of infrastructure within Africa, it's making movement of goods and services to be very difficult, and even that one also hinders intra-African trade. And you find that these are also partly contributed by our colonial legacies. You find that countries that were colonized by the French, mostly they don't have very interconnected with those that are Anglophones, and this is really affecting even the integration of Africa as a continent, because if you cannot travel from one African country to another freely, you have to go outside the continent for you to connect. It's a big challenge, and I think I don't know how they are going to tackle that, because if that can be tackled, I believe that Africa is going to even to develop, because you know the reason why European Union is very solid and is developing, because they don't have these barriers between the member states. If you go to Europe, if you have a visa to visit one of the European member states, then you are free to visit all other European member states. Unlike Africa, where if you visit Kenya, you have to seek have Kenyan visa. If you go to Zambia, you need to have a Zambian visa. If you go to South Sudan, so you find all these barriers is even hindering our own development because of that lack of free movement of goods and services. So I think it is high time, if Africa is really serious with this issue of integration, they have to consider removing some of these barriers so that people, goods, and services can move freely across our borders.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you, Mr. Barak. I realized that we were having some technical problem, and I had to fix it because our subscribers did not get a notification, so I had to recheck. And fortunately, we've been helped by our brother Benson at the behind the scenes. So at least now they've gotten the notification, and we can now proceed. Yeah. Mr. Barak, what is your take when, these three gentlemen, honorable members, were given the floor, to introduce themselves? the candidate from Djibouti, he really talked. He had time and he really spoke too long and in different languages. When Raila was given the opportunity, he said that he is a son of Africa. He was born in Africa, and and again, when the candidate from Madagascar was also given that opportunity, from our understanding, you know very well that how you introduce yourself or how you start a debate really matters. How would you rate the candidates, starting with Raila, on how they did the introduction?
Uh, I will not really give them a rating directly the way you were asking, but let me just say that you've said that the candidate of Djibouti talked for so long, and every candidate was given equal time. There was no one who was given less time than the other. So it's only that others did not utilize their full time, because introduction was 5 minutes, which was distributed equally among the three candidates. What I observed is that anytime a candidate was given an opportunity to speak first, they did not really perform very well. And because others are learning from your mistake, and they capitalize on that when they are speaking. And that's why you see when introduction came, the Djibouti candidate was the first one, and Raila was the second, and the Madagascar candidate was the third. And we know when question time came, I remember when Raila was asked the first question about how he will handle the issue of United Nations Security Council of having African as a state as a permanent member and with veto power. If you listen to his response, he did not really perform very well, because he was given the first opportunity to speak fast. When you speak fast in any debate, you really mess up, because when any mistake you do, the opponents capitalize on that, and that's why you see when the Madagascar candidate was speaking fast, he did the same. Djibouti candidate speaking fast, they did the same. So they really did very well when they were speaking second and last consecutively. When it comes to introduction, you saw that these candidates, they come from different backgrounds, and their backgrounds have really shaped them, and others have really served in various capacities. Like the Djibouti candidate is a current foreign affairs minister. The Madagascar candidate is a former foreign affairs minister. It's only Raila who has served as the prime minister. And this issue of this seat that they are looking for, you are like a diplomat, so you are going to be the number one diplomat of the African Union. So these guys who have served in foreign affairs docket, in terms of diplomacy, they understand issue of diplomacy. So right, what Raila maybe can say that Raila also maybe gotten that exposure in terms of diplomacy is when he was serving as the prime minister, and also when he was serving as the African representative of High Commissioner for Infrastructure. So you find that diplomacy is very key, because when you are leading the African Union as the chairperson, you are the number one diplomat. So you must approach issues from a diplomatic angle, because you will also need the cooperation of all these 54 member states, because the African Union is made up of member states, and if these member states are not comfortable with an issue, you must be a diplomat to understand how to persuade them maybe to support your agenda, because it is these members who are going to give you this mandate, and they are the same people that you rely on their goodwill to implement whatever vision that you have for the continent. So I can say that all the three did fairly well, but obvious, if you are given an opportunity to award a gift, you always give to your team, because that is the team that you believe is the best. So I think Raila did very well today. In fact, he even surpassed my expectation, because I thought the guy from Djibouti, being a diplomat, will really give him a run for his money. But the Djibouti candidate also took advantage of his skills in language. Yeah, because he addressed the continent in English. He also addressed them in French. So he also used Arabic. So he was just trying to show to campaign in other way to say that I understand all these languages, and I'm not like my colleagues here who only have mastered one language. They rely on this translation aids that they put in their ears to understand. Maybe if you're speaking French, but if I come to you, myself, I will speak to you in French, I'll speak to you in English, I'll speak to you in Arabic. So these are these are the African Union languages. So in that line, you can give him more credit because of his mastery of different of major African Union languages, which really worked against the other two countries, because the Madagascar countries only spoke in French, and the countries that do not understand French, like Kenya, we had to rely on a translator. Sometimes when these people translate, they may translate things that you've not said correctly, and that waters down your message. And okay, Raila was speaking in English. We are privileged because Kenya is an English-speaking country, so we didn't need a translator. But when he was speaking in English, and countries that are speaking French-speaking countries relied on a translator for them to listen to what he's saying. And when this other guy was speaking in French, he was appealing to them directly. So when the issue of language comes up here, we see that the Djibouti guy had an upper hand because of his mastery of languages. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barak. Something else that they were also asked to talk about, is how they're going to ensure that they improve the lives of the people of Africa. And the problems that we are having here in Kenya, unemployment, high cost of living, all the problems that we are having here in Kenya, the same problems that we are having in Africa. And Raila, at some point, he has gone for presidency for almost 5 times, and he has failed. And I was just looking at social media, and some people are saying that if he has failed maybe to tackle the problems of the Republic of Kenya, how is he able, if given that opportunity, how is he going to change that? You'll give us your opinion on that. And again, the issue of trade, Raila talked about trade, and almost all of them also talked about the issues to do with trade. They are acknowledging the fact that Africa is a rich country, and we have all the resources that are needed to ensure that uh, we have the wealth as a continent. And this is something that we've not been seeing from the questions that they were asked and what they gave, the answers they gave, Mr. Barak. Are you seeing the candidates, from where you see it, do you think they have the capacity to solve the issue of trade? And do you think they have the capacity to ensure that the wealth and all the minerals that you're having and the trade, Raila talked about something that, more of the trading that we do, we export too much instead of, doing trade inter-country within Africa, within the continent. We are taking too much out of Africa. And this is a danger to us as a people because, the people that we are taking, the continent that we are taking them, they are, making some useful products, and then they sell these products back to us. They talked about this. What is your take on how they handled that?
They don't have the capacity. That's my response to that, because you have to understand how the global economic system is structured for you to say that you want to challenge it, because we complain that we are exporting raw materials to the Western countries. For example, let me give you an example. Ghana and Ivory Coast are exporting cocoa beans to the Western countries, or let me say West Europe, and maybe the North America, for processing and value addition, right? Then this after this company like Nestle has already processed this cocoa cocoa beans, and now they've made more than close to 10 different products out of that through processing and value addition. Then they are selling it back to Ghana and Ivory Coast, the same product they bought from these two countries. Do you know that even farmers who are farming those cocoa beans cannot afford those products? So they usually bring a bit of it, but most of it is consumed out there. You might ask yourself why. It is because Africa do not have the purchasing capacity, right? Let me ask you, Mark, if you walk around the street of Nairobi and you ask people randomly, when was the last time you consumed a chocolate? You just walked in the supermarket and purchased a chocolate and consume it. I can assure you, you may find even someone who has never bought a chocolate, simply because we do not have the capacity. Our purchasing power is very low because of our income elasticity. We do not earn a sufficient income so that we have enough for ourselves and extra to spend on luxury. And that is why we cannot grow our industrial capacity. Because even if you manufacture those products here, who are going to buy? Because if we are struggling to afford maize flour for our daily consumption, because that's our staple food, the cheapest right now is about 150 or thereabout. We are struggling to afford that as a population. We are talking about the majority, leave alone this small portion of a population that spends luxury, that are living large. Majority of the population in Africa, they lack that purchasing capacity, and that is why even if you start manufacturing, even if you industrialize this continent, and the majority of the population are still living under the poverty level, you cannot grow in terms of trade, because the Western European, North America, they have built the capacity of the population that more than 99% have the capacity to purchase anything they want. And that's why when you manufacture those products up there, they are easily consumed by the population there. And that is what is working against us. So if they want to solve the problem, number one, they must focus on policies that can empower the majority of the population of African continent so that they can be economically liberated and have that purchasing capacity, because that is what we are lacking. If you look at what we are being sold to, even these products from China, from wherever, they are the lowest of quality in the market, because that is what we can afford. You can, majority of the population cannot afford a phone that is costing 200,000 plus or 100,000. We go for this 10,000, if you 15,000, because that is what the majority of the population can afford. And that is why you will find that our content is being treated as a dumping site for low class, low quality products. So the main focus of the African Union leadership should be on empowering the majority of the population to be economically independent so that they can have enough income for themselves and have the surplus to spend on luxury. But as long as we still don't have that capacity, we'll just be talking on and castigating the Western Europe or the North America for taking our raw materials and manufacturing, processing and adding value, and then they bring them back to us. Even if you look at the coffee that we plant here in Kenya, coffee and tea, and that is being exported for value addition and processing, and then it's brought back here. Who can afford the best coffee that has been manufactured in Europe, in Kenya? You'll find that it's a handful of the population. Majority cannot even those farmers in Mount Kenya Highlands cannot afford that coffee once it has been processed and value addition has been done. So you find that we struggle not because we don't want to, but because we don't have the capacity. So what are they going to do to ensure that majority of the population are economically liberated and empowered, so that they are making enough for themselves, and they are making surplus from their income, so that they can be spending on luxury, so that they can be supporting the economy by purchasing these luxurious products that are not basic. So even if we talk about intra-trade in Africa, are we talking about trading on basic commodities, that you are selling maize from Uganda to Kenyan because Kenyans are dying of hunger, or you are selling finished products that have quality, that have a good income elasticity? Because if you are talking about selling food between African countries, then that is not business. That is not business that can grow an economy. Because if you look at European market, between how European trade among themselves, they trade in large quantity finished products that boost an economy, and because their populations are economically empowered to purchase these high income elasticity products. But our populations are not at that level. And that is why I think sometimes we have misplaced priorities, because whatever issues that we want to address are not the real issues that are affecting the people. Poverty is the enemy here. Poverty is what is ailing Africa. Poverty is what is making Africans not to be able to afford quality products. Poverty is what is making Africa not to be able to have the purchasing power to support the economic growth. The same with Western Europe and North America. So unless you address the issue of poverty and how you can eradicate poverty from Africa, you'll just be going around in circles like merry-go-round without solving anything. And the question that we must be asking ourselves is: are the chairperson of the African Union Commission, what is his role? What is their role? Yeah, are they going to influence policies in different member states, or what are they? How are they going to achieve that objective? Because if you talk about eradicating poverty, for example, in Kenya, how has let us take an example of right now, the way who is this chairperson is from Chad. Can he influence any policy in this country? Because we are African Union is still disintegrated. We are not integrated like the way Western Europe, the way European Union is. Because European Union, they have the same currency. They have many economic policy, migration policy that affects all the member states. They have very strong leadership that influences even policies to different member states, and they even have the capacity to sanction member states who are not doing very well according to the expectation. So if you look at Africa, we don't have the same currency, we don't have the same visa, we don't have the same policies that guide our trade. Surely, how are you going to ensure that even that intertrade that you're talking about works? Because the structure of African Union is still far much behind, to a point that they can really influence economic policies across the 54 member states. Because even you can relate with what's happening in African Union and not African Union, the East African Community. Look at what's happening in ECOWAS, even in SADC. We still have differences at this regional level, that even Kenya and Tanzania cannot agree to do some trades, cross-border trade. You'll find that sometimes the president will just say, no, onions are not going to Kenya. And that president will say, no, Kenya Airways is not landing to Dar es Salaam until they agree to. So you find that we still don't have the capacity to influence policies at even our regional level. So what about the African Union level? So we still have a long way to go. And the discussion that is going on is just a way of looking for votes. And I believe that whoever will be voted in will even hardly achieve a quarter of what they were saying today, because they will find out that the structures are not supportive of their ideas, of their manifesto. The structures are there to restrict you. And if you want to know that those structures are even external, we are discussing issues of Africa. And even we are using foreign language to discuss issues of Africa. We are using English and French. And just look at who is funding African Union. Yeah. And even when they are talking about interfering with the structure of international financial systems to ensure that it favors Africa more, do they have that capacity? Because you cannot talk about influencing IMF and World Bank when you are not funding those organizations, because it is the West that funds this organization. The loans that we take from these institutions, who is funding them? Who are the leaders of these institutions? Yeah, because if you are economically incapable, it means that even in terms of your voice, you cannot. Just take an example of a home where you are 7 brothers, and say 3 brothers are doing very well and 4 brothers are not doing very well. Obvious, the minority will rule, because as long as you are financially capable, it means you can even influence policies. And that is because we are living in a capitalistic world, where the capital that you have is what give you a voice, or what makes you strong in terms of your argument, in terms of your lobbying. You cannot lobby if you lack resources. So you cannot even influence policies when you lack resources. So I think we need also to distinguish between mere politics and the facts, so that when they get in office, we will not be having a lot of expression when in reality they can hardly do nothing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barak. You've talked about funding of African Union, and this is a question that I think it was also asked, and I heard the candidate saying that the issue of funding, there's a specific percentage that I think every country is supposed to be, taking to the AU. But this is not happening. From that debate, we realized that there is a few number of countries are the ones who are funding or remitting the percentage that is required. And so my question to you is, what is it? Why is it tough for other countries within Africa to just remit their percentage? Because the African Union cannot be active. It cannot really influence issues and projects and many things if they don't have enough funding. I heard the candidates speak about it, and they're saying that they're going to enforce it, to force the member states to, remit their percentage. If this has not been happening, and I think you've talked about how AU is a very weak, it's a very weak organization, and that has even, I think that is the reason why it cannot influence issues, political lives of the countries. From the answers that the candidates gave, are you satisfied, or what is your take when it comes to what they were speaking about on the funding of the AU? And I heard the Djibouti candidate really speaking passionate about it, that he's going to ensure that all the member state participate, in the funding and whatever is needed to ensure that AU becomes a strong organization. What do you have to say about that?
This question reminds me when we were doing a history and government in high school, and we were used to, and they used to ask this question: and what are the challenges that are facing regional integration, or even this international organization? Why are they weak? And there were questions that were just they never changed. That one of them is divided loyalty.
Funding, yeah.
Divided loyalty, because you find that, take an example of Kenya. Kenya is a member of East African Community. Kenya is a member of IGAD. Kenya is a member of COMESA. Kenya is a member of African Union. Kenya is a member of United Nations. Kenya is a member of Commonwealth. Surely. And you find that all these organizations, they have some subscription fee minus common, because Commonwealth is by the virtue of being colonized by the British. So at least that one we are member naturally, because we are called like we're a former British colony. But what about the others? You find that if East African community, we need to pay something. European African Union, we need to pay something. African United Nations, we need to pay something. This commerce and so you find that sometimes Africa countries are poor, so they will only pay a small fee where they feel there's value. Yeah, and because at the United Nations there's a lot of privilege, so they will not want to default from there. But when you go to this other organization, you find that they are weak, because even the African country cannot pay. And I'm asking a question: what capacity do the chairperson has to compel a country to pay their subscription fee? Do they have that within their constitution, within their role, so that so that they force those countries to pay? And what if they don't pay? What will happen? Yeah. Do they have the capacity to force them to have to pay? Because if you don't have a way of compelling these candidates to pay, then your threat is as good as nothing, because you'll just be threatening and nothing will happen. And remember, the level of poverty in Africa is it is one of the reasons that is making Africa to be so vulnerable for external interference. Because if you'll find that even in the election of African Union chair, the people who funds the organization will want to micromanage that election, to ensure that whoever is elected will be there to serve their interest. Because once you are being funded by external forces, it means you must only be there to control those funds to the interest of those people who are funding you. So that is going to be a big challenge. And as long as African Union cannot really fund itself adequately, it means that even the activities of the African Union cannot be really African, because they will be having this external interference at one point and another. And I think you remember when Museveni once said that when they had a meeting at the African Union and they decided to send some African presidents to Libya, when there was this Arab Spring in North Africa. And when they were going to Libya, you remember that he said that the leader of NATO called them and told them to return to wherever they are coming from, because they are fully in charge of the situation in Libya. And remember, who is NATO? NATO is a Western organization. So you find that they took over control of Libya, and they fulfilled the objective. And African Union was helpless. They didn't do anything. They didn't have the capacity to even to challenge NATO. They didn't have the capacity even to stamp the authority in Libya to prove that they have the capacity. So this shows you that African Union is vulnerable for external interference, because they don't have the financial muscles. Yeah. And once you lack financial muscles, those people who are financing you will control you. They will interfere with your policies to ensure that your policies are serving their interest, and you will just be there like a conveyor belt, because you don't have the capacity to implement what you want or what you are willing to implement. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barak. The issue, something else that was also being talked about, the issue of security. Security is an issue that is affecting the whole world, not just Africa, but the whole world. And in Africa, we've got countries, a good number of countries, where we've had insecurity, where we've had even presidents have been overthrown, And this is a threat to the continent. Again, in other parts of the world, there are also issues of insecurity. And this is affecting the whole world. And when they were asked about something to do with security, they talked about, the membership of the Security Council in the world. And the candidates, both of them, they talked about, they all gave their opinion on, what they feel about the issue of security and how it should be managed. And I remember Raila said something. Raila said something about it, the candidate of Djibouti and also of Madagascar. And it's Raila who insisted that he'll, once, if suppose he's given the opportunity, he will ensure that, there would be 2 permanent seats, for Africans in that council. What is your take on that, and how is that going to help the people of the continent of Africa, Mr. Barak? Maybe before you come in, I can see Eric Kayaga has also joined. Eric, just relax. I'll give you a time to also give your opinions. Let me first finish with Mr. Barak. Yes, Mr. Barak.
That was just playing to the gallery. There is no way you can compel the United Nations to give you two permanent seats at the Security Council with veto powers when you are not funding even the United Nations itself adequately. You know, these powers do not just come. It depends with your economic capacity to fund these organizations so that you can influence even policies there. The reason why the US is very powerful, it is because they have the economic prowess to influence, because they are the biggest funders of the United Nations, of this IMF, World Bank. So that gives them the leverage to influence policies, to influence leadership. Because when African, the Israelis say that he will ensure that Africa gets 2 seats, then what point will you be arguing that that Africans are many? We have 54 states, but we have 54 states, yes. But what is our input in the United Nations affairs? What is our input there in terms of financial support? What percentage is Africa bringing to support the activities of the United Nations? Yeah. So, you cannot just argue based on population or based on the fear of the numbers of states. You argue based on your financial input in the activities of the organization, because you'll find that it is not the US funding the United Nations, and this Western European country, and that's why they have these permanent seats with veto powers. There is no poor countries who country in the UN Security Council with a permanent seat. We don't have. All those countries are very powerful with very big economies because they are able to fund. Anytime the UN needs money, they are able to put in some money there. So that is just playing to the gallery, but in real sense, how the international system is structured, it is not possible, because there are issues that are looked into, and one of these issues is how powerful your economy is to be able to fund the organization. If Africa was one country, yeah, with and now we'll argue that the African economy is very big. Maybe you can compare it with the one of maybe that of China or UK or whatever. That way, maybe you can go and start arguing that you need even that 1 seat as a permanent member. But you cannot go there that you have 54 states, and you are counting countries like Burundi, I don't know, this guy, South Sudan, countries that even cannot even feed themselves. It's laughable. You want to compare yourself with countries like UK because they have a permanent membership. China, yeah, It is not possible. So sometimes when politicians speak to the gallery so that they win support, it is understandable. But now you need to distinguish what is practical, what they can do when they get to office, and what they were just saying to speak to the gallery. And once we understand to distinguish the two, I believe that we will not be having too much expectation from these politicians once they acquire office. And if you listened carefully to the response of that guy from Djibouti about this issue of Security Council, because it's not a very easy issue. And let me tell you, the world is having a challenge of security, but these challenges are different completely. The challenges of Africa, in security in Africa, most of them are problems that are locally manufactured. If you look at, for example, what is happening in Sudan right now, that is just, it's a civil war that is going on. If you look at what is happening in DRC, look at what is happening in Mozambique. Even our neighbor here, Somalia, they are still struggling with the issue of insecurity. So you find that even though there are some external forces that are influencing this civil war, but a big percentage is locally manufactured. You find that leaders who want to cling to power, for others do not want to the country to hold even elections, free and fair elections. Others want to rule without following democratic channels. Others want to rule because they believe that their communities are the majority. So we find these issues are the ones that are bringing problems in this continent. Others, we find that military have decided they are going to take over the leadership of those countries, and they are not going to embrace civil rules. And you cannot compare these challenges with what is going on, maybe with the terrorist attacks in Western countries, because those are very, very distinct challenges, even though they are all related. They are all related to security. If you look at what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, you find that these are countries that are fighting for identity. They are fighting to reclaim what they believe is theirs but was taken, or they're also fighting to protect what they believe is their right. So Africa, we have so many challenges in terms of silencing the guns. The way they are saying, the plan was that by 2020 the guns will be silent, but right now the guns are louder than even before. The guns are very much louder even in our neighborhoods. Sudan is just our neighbor here in the north. So Mozambique is just here down south here. The guns are louder. If you go to DRC, the guns are louder. Yeah. So what are they going to do to ensure that the guns are silenced? These problems cannot be sorted out by importing solutions from outside. You must come up with workable solutions that are homegrown, that are homegrown, and they can grow to ensure that the people from these specific countries embrace these solutions, and they take ownership, so that they will not feel that maybe Western countries or European countries are imposing solutions on them, so that they can rebel against it. But when something is homegrown, all of you take ownership, and you find that you can really embrace it. And by this way, maybe some countries can eventually enjoy some seasons of peace, and so that they can even develop their own economy. But if we continue the way we are, I don't think the guns are going to be silent in Africa anytime. So even that Vision 2063 is not going to work. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barak. To our viewers, if you are new here, this is Brother Benson Media, and here we say that your opinion counts. If you're new, we are kindly requesting you to just hit the subscription button, so that you'll become a family with us here at Brother Benson Media. Kindly subscribe before you leave. We request you to kindly do that. I can see my brother Eric Ayaga over here. Maybe Eric, you're welcome to also give your opinion on the issue that we are talking about here. The debate that was there in Addis Ababa. We had 3 candidates. One, our own Raila Odinga. We had the Djibouti candidate and the Madagascar candidate. They were all given the opportunity to tell the people of Africa what they're going to do should they get the opportunity to, be elected as the AU chairman. And so, Mr. Eric, what is your take on first? What can you say about the prowess and the introduction bit and the knowledge that the three candidates have? Kindly give us your opinion on what you saw on the three candidates.
Thank you much, Makobura, and I want to also greet my brother Barak. I've had him; he's a very good debater. And I just want to echo. They say a walk of 1,000 miles starts with one step. This is the very first time to make Africa. Now, Africa is walking towards something. Because what in this life, what you need to do to be where you need to be is hope and ideas, and you be futuristic. We have seen from today that debate was a very good one. I can say all candidates, they did well. Actually, all of them have a dream for this continent, because number one, Africa has been misrepresented. In terms of natural resources, we are the continent that is rich with natural resources. Number two, African has been looted. We have been looted. The gold deposits you're seeing in Europe and Asia and the United States of America, almost all of them were looted here. And that is what still is happening up to date with uranium in Congo. That's why we cannot have peace in Congo. I heard Barak saying the Sudan is at war. Sudan is at war, yes. It is a civil war being funded by these big powers to destabilize that country so that they can continue extracting oil and not pay for it in that country. They are the people who are supplying dams, they're supplying weapons to that country. There is no one company in Africa that is manufacturing weapon. I don't think all these weapons we are using, except the crude ones like arrows and spears, the guns are coming outside Africa. And I think with the debate, I watched Raila Odinga in answering the insecurity in Africa. The insecurity in Africa is not homogeneous. That's number one. That's why I want to disagree a little bit with my brother Barak, that insecurity in Africa is not homogeneous. It is something that is being created by outside. The problem in Congo is world powers. You get the US backing a rebel there. You get Russia also backs a rebel there. And they use our neighboring country to back those rebels like M23. Rwanda is backing a rebel in a neighboring country. That is, we need to call Africa to order. When Africa, we need to get represented. In terms of GDP, if African countries, 55 of them, or 54, if you minus the unrecognized one like Sarawi, if you merge the GDP, it is a little big enough. We need a security seat, a veto seat in Security Council. I think Raila Odinga is unexcused. We need even 3 at least. We need 3 because Africa, even our boundaries, we never drew them. Anything that we are doing in this continent, it is not ours. It is these white people. They came here, they destabilized us 60 years. Some of African nations more than 60 years after independence, but they are being still destabilized by the Western powers and the Eastern power. That's why there is a cold war between East and West. Where is Africa? Where is Africa? Africa is just somewhere floating. is being used like a pendulum. If they push you east, you go to Russia and China. If the China gets you, it push you back to east, to the west. So I think we as Africa, we need now, from this moment going forward, we need to make an Africa like to look like a one state. So when we are going to argue in UN, we don't need to have 54 presidents. We need one body, an organization that represent Africa. In Africa, we need AMISON, like what Raila was saying. We need AMISON, like, you know, in United States, there are those whatever in those states, they have their policing and security arrangement. But when there is a problem in one state that runs outside that state's management, they send a national guard. So AMISON should be like a national guard. When there's a problem in Sudan, we send an AMISON to quell that tension. We don't need to expect the United States to come from outside to help us quell the tension. We don't need Russia or China to quell the tension. This is the moment Africa has been waiting, and it is a good trajectory, because at some point in life we must have a U-turn. We must have what the Christians say. This was the turning point, and I think this is the turning point for Africa. Marco Bura.
Okay, thank you, Brother Eric. To our viewers, this is Brother Benson Media, and if you're new to this channel, kindly like and subscribe to the channel so that whenever we're having these conversations, you'll be notified, and at least you'll be part and parcel of Brother Benson Media. Mr. Eric, there are some there are some issues which were talked about in this debate with the three gentlemen. The issue of its infrastructure, it is a challenge in the continent of Africa. You find that we cannot freely, travel to our neighboring countries just because either infrastructure, either through air or through rail, you cannot actually, the infrastructure system is not really up to date. And it is a problem. You cannot even transport products from one country to another. And it is really hailing us as a continent. The issue of trade, there are trade barriers. Each and every country, they're trying to make trade within intercountry, too tough. The issues of security, which we just talked about. And again, the issue of funding, AU. There's a lot of comments that many countries in Africa are also not even funding. How are they even expecting it to work, to influence, issues, to influence, whatever is happening in these countries if we are not funding it? How are they, from what you watched, what can you say about these candidates and how they're going to, under the issue of infrastructure, the issue of trade, the issue of security, the funding of this organization? What can you say from what you watched?
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful question. I think these three gentlemen, they are the sons of Africa, and whatever at their hearts, whatever they say is good for Africa. Nobody spoke anything against Africa. Three of them. I love the way Raila Odinga answers his questions, the way the Djibouti man, Mahmoud, made this question, and the Madagascar guy. It was excellent. We have a dream. And if you have a dream, sometimes you must wake up to start chasing that dream. So I think we have been barricaded by the colonial boundaries that have been with us here for a very long time. And Raila said that when the AU was formed, some president wanted to form one body to manage Africa. But some were on contrary opinion. They let us do it blocks like SADC, like East African Community, like ECOWAS, and the Sahel one, so that we do blocks and then join these blocks. So it is 60 years. we have problems, because sometimes you see people who had great ideas like Kwame Nkrumah, they were overthrown. But yeah, anybody who, people like the Congo guy, yeah, he was killed. So we tumekuwa na shida kama Africa, but now comes a time that we have realized that, number one, what Africa we need to look for a language, not imported one. We need a language. Kama ni Kiswahili, let us have Kiswahili or something. And I love the way they call that Mjadala Africa. That sends a strong message that Africa is now even trying to do a homogeneous language that many people, if you come to Africa, if you don't know Kiswahili, it is your problem. Like if the white people, when they visited us, it is upon us to know English so that we understand each other. So I think it is a good thing. Number two, it is on trade. These tariffs and barriers and these colonial boundaries should actually be removed so that people can walk freely and people can do business, and countries can do trade without this much restriction. Number three, I think telecommunication. In Africa, we don't need that. We have 50 something codes, where in Uganda we have a own telecommunication code. Kenya 52, 54 to 55. Uganda, no. We need to merge. At least we have 4 or 3 like US. Let us have, if it is for East Africa, let us have for East Africa to make communication smooth. When the ECOWAS should have theirs, and the SADC should have theirs, and the Sahara people should also have theirs. So at least we have 3 or 4 codes yenye italeta hiyo uwiano na communication itakuwa rahisi kati ya African countries. Number 3, it is infrastructure. Let us now start building those roads that link us to our neighboring countries. I think if the economy of Burundi cannot sustain a road, and a road is designed from South Africa going up to Cairo, it passed through Djibouti, that Burundi, that country will benefit from such infrastructure, will also help them actually fight lack of development in that countries. I think when it comes to development, or when we are arguing with the big powers like China and US, we don't need there to go as individual countries, that we are being boxed into some loans that interferes with us as individual countries. We need to go there as Africa, so that when we bargain for a project that runs from Mombasa to Lagos. I love that. That is a great idea. Maybe it may not be actual for now, but it is a very great idea that was in the discussion. I think also we need to do what we call I'm forgetting. I had this point. We need as Africa, we need to be friendly in terms of security. When there is a problem in Congo, we always say one thing in our mother tongue, that when your neighbor gets mad, you should be worried, because it is your house that you will enter for first time. So when there is a problem in Congo, the countries that will carry the burden of having refugees are neighbor countries. So we need not to harbor a conflict in those countries. So Rwanda should come down, Uganda should come down, Angola should come down, and the Brazzaville Congo should come down, and ensure that there is a stability in that country. And when Congo is reproducing its mineral and make good use of it, I think the neighboring countries will also have a good economy system and a good environment to do business. So I think I don't have much, but it is a good start. People must start somewhere. Even US, for them to bring those 51 states under one government, it was not easy. It took so many years. They went through civil war. They went through several things. For AU to be EU, to be formed as what it is today. It has gone through a revolution, evolution up to now. So for Russia to be where it is today, it has gone through the process. So Africa, hata kama this is a little, it may seems like a pipe dream, but it is good. Africa is sending message to the world powers that one day we may have been disagreed because we were separated by Anglophone, Francophone, sijui, whatever. We are coming together and we may speak in one voice in the near future. We may not see it, but it is something that I know it's coming. Marco Bura.
Okay, thank you, brother Eric, for that. For that comment. To our viewers, I'll remind you again that this is Brother Benson Media, and here we say that your opinion counts. Your opinion can count anytime, anywhere, so long as it is not interfering with the lives of others, the rights of others. Mr. Barak, maybe your last comment on the issue of AU, Africa Union. Mr. Barak, are you there? Yeah, so the question that I have for you before we close the show, Mr. Barak, is from where you see it, Mr. Barak, what are the ways, or what are the structures that should be put in place to ensure that we have an African Union that is functional, an African Union that has power, an African Union that is influencing, whatever is happening within the continent of Africa. Mr. Barak.
Well, thank you, Mark. I think the biggest problem to the integration of Africa, as I said earlier, is poverty. There's a say that if two poor people meet themselves in a rich man's house, they become enemies, and they don't even know each other because one hates the other, thinking that this guy is going to benefit from this guy, and so forth. So you find that the biggest problem we have as Africa is poverty. So as long as Africa is not economically, we were given political independence, but economically we've never been independent since, for example, more than 60 years ago. Kenya celebrated yesterday. I think it was 61st or 60 Independence Day. But what about economic independence? The reason why the West, the West and Europe are able to micromanage Africa is because of the poverty in Africa. The reason why China has come so easily in Africa to micromanage even key infrastructures in Africa is because of the poverty that is rampant in this continent. So the leaders that we have, they are so happy holding on to their positions without having any idea of how to liberate their people from poverty. Look at South Sudan. Since they got independent in 2005, they've had only one president who is not willing even to vacate office. But what are the poverty levels in that country? What has he done to eradicate poverty? Look at this country that we call ours, very beautiful country, that instead of the government coming out with poverty eradication measures, they are exporting labor that you willingly give your citizens away to go and do manual work in a foreign land. It's unheard of. So these are the challenges that Africa is having. Leaders who don't have a vision to liberate their population, their citizens from poverty. And as long as we are still living in poverty, there is nothing tangible that we can do, even at African Union level, because the West will continue to micromanage and to influence the activities of African Union because they are not able to support themselves. And that is the big challenge. You will see us being divided ECOWAS against EAC and SADC because of this Anglophone and Francophone differences. And they do that to their own advantage, not to our own advantage. And the leaders that we have, yeah, they continue to tolerate that because they are the only people who are benefiting. Even this war that civil war that you see that is going on in Congo, if you look at how the West are treating the political leaders of Congo, they are treated so well to an extent that they can't even connect with the suffering of sorry, the suffering of their population, of their citizens. So if Africa can have leaders, yeah, who are visionary, who are selfless, and who are committed to delivering or liberating Africans economically, then we can make a step. The only challenge we have that when we have such leaders, they hardly live long. Look at example of what happened in Tanzania during under the reign of John Pombe Magufuli. Magufuli was one of the best leaders in Africa, a leader who was so committed to his people to change the economic status, to change their living standards. What happened to him? So that is the tragedy we have in Africa. That when you have a leader who is visionless, a leader who is just there to satisfy the interest of the West, those leaders can rule forever. Yeah. But when you have a transformational leader, a visionary leader who want to bring change in Africa, they can even hardly finish their terms. And I think I believe that at some point the people of Africa will have to rise up and demand that this has to stop, because sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. You have to fight for a cause that you believe in, because we've been independent for more than 60 years, but we have never been able to enjoy the fruits of independence. Because what is the importance of political independence without economic independence? The West is controlling Africa because of their economic might. Yeah. and that's why they can't even make a call to Nairobi and tell the president you have to do ABCD, and the president will oblige and respectfully and even pledge loyalty, because the Kenyan economy is dependent on the West economy. and even now, if you look at now the whole African economy is dependent on these Western economies, and that is the tragedy that we are having as a continent. So what we have to do, if we are to get ourselves out of this dependent syndrome, we have to ensure that we develop our economies and grow our own wealth as Africa. We brag that Africa is the richest continent in the world in terms of resources. True, but what are we doing with those resources? We have allowed external actors to finance wars and conflict within our rich regions where we have those resources, so that Africa can never enjoy those resources. Yeah. And it's a tragedy. Yeah, because you are rich but you're not enjoying your riches. Other people somewhere are the people who are now enjoying your riches, and you elect leaders, they serve, they retire, they elect others, they serve, and conflict continues in your country. And even African Union is helpless. They cannot even intervene to restore sanity in these countries. Yeah. So that shows you how the problem we have as Africa is so big. So we must empower Africa economically, so that we can also have a say, so that we can also influence global economic systems. Because as long as these systems are against us, there is no way. We'll just be talking and nothing happens. We'll just be talking when nothing will happen. Even China did not just wake up and find itself as an economic powerhouse. They built the economy. And that's why right now they are even a threat to the West. And you have seen their presence in Africa is felt. And even if you go to the US, you'll find that the best electronics that they are usually consuming in the US come from China. So you have to build your capacity to compete at the global level. Nobody's going to help you build. You have to build it yourself. Yeah. China did not rely on the US to help them build the economy. They just decided as a country, we are going to come up with policies that are going to ensure that we become an economy powerhouse. And they did it. Yeah. So we have to also to decide as Africans that we have to build our capacity. We have to build our economic capacity to ensure that we can also influence policies at the global level. But we cannot influence policies with empty pockets, because those who are holding this position, once their pockets are filled by this imperialists, they'll just sing their song. So as long as we are still living this kind of life, as long as Africa is still underdeveloped, there is nothing tangible they can do to help themselves. So we must have to build our capacity, first of all, before we talk about anything else. That is how the system, the world system is structured, and that is how the world system functions. Because they can only listen to you when you are now challenging them, when you have now the capacity to challenge the system. China has done it, and even the Asian tigers did it. Africa can do it, yeah, but we cannot do it while we are still dependent on the economy. That's my last remarks. Have a blessed night wherever you are, and see you next time. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barak. It was nice, being with you in the studio, and thanks for your good comments. Brother Eric, what is your take on what we need, as the people of Africa? What is it that is going to help us to overcome the challenges that we are, facing as the people of Africa? And maybe after giving that opinion, you'll also give us your last remarks before we close.
Okay, thank you very much. I think my brother Barak has finished everything. My friend, in Africa, I only disagree with him when we say Africa, we are poor. But in his middle statement, he agreed that Africa is rich, but our richness is enjoyed somewhere else, not with us. Africa is a very rich continent when it comes to natural resources. We are the richest continent in the world, so we are not poor. What we lack in Africa is the management. After independence, we were given independence, yes, but economical independence we were never given. Our money are still being done by Reserve Bank in West Africa, in Western countries. Something that has actually derailed Africa in terms of development. And I think these people, when they were leaving us, they studied us. The moment they were here, they studied us. They knew how to use African people. African people, you give them puppet, you pamper that puppet with money, you make that puppet have a comfortable life and rule Africa with iron fist and giving those white people the natural resources. That's where they beat us flat-footed. And that's where our problem is. We have a good continent, but we don't have actually a good leadership. Our leadership, to get African president is elected like the one we have here in Kenya, Kasongo, alafu boom, ameenda US kuombaomba huko. That Kenyan economic natural resources is enough that we can actually use to bring our country up to a certain level. It is very, very painful. When we still go for vaccination from Bill Gates, because mang'ombe zetu zinanyamba hapa, because we please those billionaires in US so that they come do a genetic test here, leave us with our animals being in problems, but give these few people money. I think African, we need leaders. And I don't know why God is not on our side. Every time African got a good leader, like Magufuli, they always died. They always get killed. They always just disappear in this earth like the Thomas Sankaras of this world. It is very painful. But I think the Africa has not always spoke in one voice. We always speak as individual countries. Where we see what happens in Tanzania or Uganda is not Kenyan's problem. What happens in Somali is not Kenyan's problem. I think it is high time we need to speak to our brothers from Asia, like China and Russia and the United States and the Europe people. We need to speak in one voice, because the problem of Nigerians is the problems of Congo and is the same problems of Kenya. Bad leadership. In fact, what we are suffering in Africa is bad leadership. Only bad leadership. If we can solve this bad leadership, if we can elect people who actually, after being in office, do not be the puppets of Africa, of US and EU and Asians and whatever, we can have the best continent with natural resources that everybody wish to be in. I thank you very much. I wish Raila all the best. I am supporting him as a Kenyan because he is a Kenyan is in the ballot. We may have our political differences down here at home, but when it comes now in terms of Kenya going to start to give Africa a turning point, that Africa now thinking, even with that less action, but speaking about their problem in one voice, I wish Raila all the best to be the AU chairman. Thank you very much, Makubura.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eric, for finding time to join the show. It was nice being with you here. I also take this opportunity to thank Mr. Barak for finding time. To our viewers, we are very, very much grateful that you took your time at this time to be with us and to listen to us. We don't take it for granted. If you're new, kindly like and subscribe to the channel. It's a way of supporting us, and we will really, really appreciate. I want to now take this opportunity to wish you a blessed night. I want to take this opportunity again to wish you a blessed night if you are within. If you are somewhere else, a blessed morning, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening from wherever you are. Thank you so much. And we believe that you'll be with us. You'll join us again tomorrow. Thank you so much. And may God bless you. And bye-bye.